G'day, mate. Luke Ford here, and trying to get a hold of this book. It's a lifelong under-earner. So prior to getting a hold of this book, wow, I'd never earned more than $45,000 in a year. So pretty pathetic. And my under-earning had gone back a long time. I could see all those qualities just kind of strangling my life. And finally managed to get a bit of a hold on the problem the last 3 years, for which I'm very grateful. So I'm in 5 different 12-step programs, but my life didn't really improve until I entered a 12-step program that was focused on getting my financial house together, getting a handle on my debts, getting a handle on my earnings. So there are 3 main 12-step programs that deal with poverty. There's Debtors Anonymous, there's Under Earners Anonymous, and there is Financial Under Earners Anonymous. And it was in these programs that I learned about this book by Gerald Mundis, How to Earn What You Deserve, How to Stop Under Earning and Start Thriving. So he also wrote a terrific book on getting out of debt. So in May of 2015, I had about $52,000 worth of credit card debt. I had about $25,000 in other debts. And I never earned over $45,000 in a year. I was earning that time about $30,000 a year, but $12,000 of that was about to go away. So I'd had a deal that was making me $1,000 a month, but it was about to end. I was working 20 to 30 hours a week, and I hadn't made any progress with my credit card debt in 3.5 years. So 2015, I was 49 years of age. It wasn't a lot there for me to be optimistic about. And I bought this new computer 6 months before, and a dumb thing broke down on me. So I was faced with my evenings. I didn't have my computer to distract myself. And my boss, he was so, that guy. On one hand, he said, "Oh, you can just borrow, your work computer. You can take it home." And I thought, no. If you'll just let me come in on Sundays and use the computer for my own thing to catch up on my own stuff, that'd be enough. And then he decided not only could I not take the work computer home, I couldn't come in on weekends or evenings to use the computer for my own stuff. So I had nothing to distract myself with in May of 2015. So I made my way to one of these money-focused 12-step programs. And coming out of my first meeting, like, whoa, I can do this. I had this transformational experience in my first meeting. It was a visions meeting. So everyone got to go around the room and share for 30 seconds on their vision, and then got to conclude the meeting by talking about one step that you'll take towards your vision that week. Then I found out there were all these 12 steps related to earning and to debting. And there were 12 tools, 12 traditions. Like, oh, wow, there's this whole comprehensive program. And it makes sense, and I can do it. And there are all these other people, and they're doing it, and they're getting relief. And I'm as smart and as capable and as disciplined as they are. I can definitely do this too. And my body language transformed, my thinking transformed, the way I spoke was transformed. My therapist picked up the transformation immediately. Like, just from that first meeting, I saw a way out of my financial problems. I saw there was a community, and I was tapped into an energy. I really needed energy, and I needed energy to turn my financial situation around. And by going to these meetings every day, I tapped into a source of energy greater than myself. I tapped into God in a way that just practicing my Orthodox Judaism wasn't doing. And by being part of a community with a similar problem, I had fellowship and I had people I could call on a regular basis. I had people I could network with and be action partners with. And yeah, we were all crazy, but we weren't all crazy in the same ways. We could support each other, encourage each other. And I had like this human connection. And so that was awesome. I remember coming out of my first meeting, saw that I'd received a $50 donation from my blog, and I started thinking, wow, this program really, really works. I'd started doing daily chores about age 5. We lived in a cold home in Manchester, England at the time. My dad was doing a PhD from Manchester University, and I would volunteer to do the dishes every day because it gave me an opportunity to soak my hands and my arms in this hot, sudsy water, and that took away the pain of the cold. So I used to get hit a lot by, I'll just say I got hit a lot. And so I kind of learned to lie to try to reduce the beatings. And I developed an instinct to lie. And lying remains an instinct for me. Whenever I'm caught out, whenever I'm in trouble, I want to, and I'll try to lie my way out of things. But then I found out if you get caught lying, there's no way out to get out, then just make a full confession. That kind of reduces people's anger, makes them less likely to want to hurt me. It kind of reduces the intensity of the beating I was about to receive. So I learned early on in life that really takes the anger out of people if you make a complete confession. Like I tried lying first, and that didn't work. Do the complete confession. So when I was 5, 6, 7, my parents would put me down for a nap every day after lunch. And I remember I'd just scream bloody murder till falling asleep. And I kind of developed an addiction to this toxic stew of hatred. I directed it against my parents and against all authority. And I also developed the habit of kind of hurting myself. Not literally, I wasn't hacking away, but just self-sabotage because I saw how much that hurt my parents. I kind of learned to glory in my hopelessness and pain and rage. And I got addicted to collapsing. I got addicted to losing and got addicted to hurting myself. And I think, oh, bloody show them. That's one of my most frequent patterns of thinking. So to escape from this daydreaming, I escaped from this misery. I took up daydreaming. And I'd start daydreaming my days away about having awesome adventures and being an incredibly powerful person. Around age 7, I looked at some pornography, and it was another intense and wonderful escape. I just loved excitement. I loved excessive exercise and excessive reading and excessive eating, particularly of forbidden foods in my family, such as candy. Steal money from my parents, and I'd buy candy. Till 4th grade, my teacher caught me with a big candy stash, reported me to my parents, who were very upset, and got a beating I'll never forget. And I learned to stop stealing from my parents. Didn't steal from other people. I didn't develop that habit, but I only stole from my parents, and basically only from years 7 to 9. I was an indifferent student, didn't put much effort into my schooling unless the topic interests me. And I think I kind of saw how much it hurt my parents that I was doing so poorly in school, and that kind of incentivized me. This is okay. This is a talk about the characteristics of children of alcoholics.
Hi, this is Mark Smith.
And I didn't have any alcohol in my home, but for some reason, these talks about being a child of alcoholics really speaks to me. It just seems to mirror my own experience. This is therapist Mark Smith from Family Tree Brand Life Coaches.
With Family Tree Counseling Associates. And I'm going to be speaking on the topic 20 characteristics of adult children of alcoholics. As those of you who follow our channel, you'll know that my partner Jerry Wise has made many videos on the topic of adult children of alcoholics, and I have not. And the reason for that was, I guess I looked at it more globally, that if one grows up in a dysfunctional family and has the erratic behavior of unhealthy parents, that even if they're not alcoholics, that they certainly have many of the characteristics of alcoholics. So, however, I did some research and I came up with a quote from the leader of the adult children of alcoholics movement, if you will, the writer Janet Wojcicki, who wrote Adult Children of Alcoholics many years ago. And this is what she had to say. She said, Adult Children of Alcoholics was originally published with only the children of alcoholics in mind. But since its first publication, we've learned that the material discusses and applies to other types of dysfunctional families as well. If you did not grow up with alcoholism, but lived, for example, with other compulsive behaviors such as gambling.
Okay, so Brazil's now taken a 3-1 lead over Peru. So that should be the end of that. USA plays Jamaica in about 4 hours. So right back to a history of my under-earning. So I was a poor student in school, didn't like the reality of life, and so I tried to escape from the boring humdrum of Currumbong in New South Wales, Australia. Try to reach for excitement to get me out of my slump. So I was the class clown. I was thirsty for attention. I was always acting out until I got some. And the more secure I felt, the more I would make subversive jokes. I gloried in provoking my teachers into hitting me. When they did, I felt glorious that I was a victim. Moved to California this summer of 1977. And it was great because I no longer got hit by my parents. I was now 11 years of age, and it was just socially inappropriate to hit your kids in California compared to Australia. Also, they didn't hit you in school now, so I was really excited about that. So in 6th grade, I began class in Napa Valley in 6th grade, and I saw many of my classmates had jobs. So I asked for a job from a family friend who admired my father's preaching. So I kind of worked that family connection, and I worked in the garden of this couple. She was a doctor, and she was black. He was white and a businessman. I did various chores for about 6 months for about $2.50 an hour till they finally fired me for not putting much effort in and for not following directions, of just being a lousy worker. Remember how humiliated I felt when the black lady doctor came to our home and explained to my parents right in front of me why I was fired. So the same kind of tunnel vision I displayed in that first job, that same reluctance I had to look for things to do beyond what was assigned, my lack of interest in following directions, the kind of boredom that I had with being of assistance to other people, that lack of empathy, all those character defects would get in my way all through my life, not just in jobs. So I did other jobs, odd jobs the next 4 years. I got fired from every single one. I was never particularly interested in putting much effort in to do the jobs right. Then summer of 1982 came around. I was 16. Great summer because I fell in love and met this girl, Rainey, who reciprocated. And I had a job that I liked. The first time I had a job that I liked, I was a summer camp counselor. I only earned $400 for the entire summer, but it was fun work, and I didn't get fired. And I got one reprimand. Next summer, I worked as a janitor at Pacific Union College. I earned about $2,000. I didn't get fired. My job review was mediocre, but at least I didn't get fired. There were some incidents from that summer I remember that kind of bear on my history of under-earning. There was a Vietnam vet on my cleaning crew, and I asked him if he was a baby killer. So this kind of provocative talk, I alienated much of the crew, my co-workers, and they took to tearing me down in response, till there was this like Latino immigrant, I think from South America, who said that was unchristian of them. I remember him standing up for me. I remember walking back from one task at work, seeing some friends sitting down and chatting with them, and then the boss walking by, noticing me and saying nothing. I remember bringing the crew back into the office after the day was done, and we would just sit around and tell jokes, hanging out on the clock till we all finally punched out. So I didn't have a very strong work ethic. though it never occurred to me directly to steal anything. Never been a direct thief except for a couple of years with my parents. I was a thief in the sense that I didn't feel great obligation to work all the time that I was on the clock. Often had that intention, but my flesh was weak. I hated working. I was always looking for distraction, for opportunities to tell jokes, to build up romantic and sexual intrigue and tension on the job. If I wasn't getting attention, then I kind of lose interest in my job, just always looking to be distracted, looking to have intense conversations and intrigue and fun, getting interested in everything but work. These have been characteristics of my whole work history over the decade. So these characteristics that were hamstringing me in 6th grade, 7th grade, 10th grade, been with me my whole life. And my parents would often admonish me, don't take the easy way out, because the tendency was to do that very thing. I'd rather watch TV than work or study. And it's always been easier for me to numb out to distractions than to do the hard work necessary to build an honorable life. So I graduated from high school in 1984 with a 3.3 GPA, pretty mediocre, 1135 SAT score. Didn't put much effort into topics at school that didn't interest me. Moved back to Australia, lived with my brother for a year. It took me several weeks to find a job. And about 6 weeks, I remember how useless I felt. I finally got a job at the equivalent of Kmart, GJ Coles in Australia, probably because I was the only applicant who wore a suit to the interview, and because I stopped telling the truth about my intentions to return to the United States within a year. Now, I hated this humdrum job as a stock boy. I got admonished for talking too much to girls, for calling my boss mate. I had an Aboriginal superior, and I told him the best way to get an Abo girl pregnant was to come on her shoe and let the flies do the rest. After a few weeks of this humdrum job, I resolved, okay, I'm going to study hard. I'm going to return to college. About 4 months in, a friend of my brother's landed me a great job for about 3 times the pay. Now made about $25, $30 an hour. In 1984, I had a contract to clean and maintain the Boyne Island shopping center. As long as I showed up, did the work, I was my own boss, I was on contract, and I got to hang out in my shed quite a bit and read about 2 hours a day. Must have been a lousy worker because the shopping center never again extended such a contract. So I could go on and on with my miserable work history. I think it's an important exercise is to do a history of your under-earning. So I want to read a little bit from Earn What You Deserve, How to Stop Under-Earning and Start Thriving. So here are some characteristics of active under-earning. That means doing something that results in under-earning, from quitting a job to setting low fees to turning down work. So example of active under-earning, seeking work for which you're not qualified, making unreasonable demands on an employer or client, spending time on projects or activities that will make little or no money, incurring heavy expenses, botching a job, telling prospective clients or employers that you don't know how to do what they've hired you to do, behaving obnoxiously or offensively on the job or with clients, accepting work you know will pay you less than you need, making promises you can't fulfill, exhausting yourself during non-working hours so you can't really show up, be your best at work, investing more time on a job than you're being paid. And this guy gives an example from his own life. Says, I wrote most of my books under pseudonyms. Whenever one of those pseudonyms became famous and built a loyal readership, I killed that name, began writing under a new name. I had a conscious reasons for doing this, an elitist Flaubert-like attitude about the difference between art and commerce. The readers want a writer to produce the same kind of book every time. There are all these reasons. The real truth, though, is that changing names was a near perfect function of my compulsion to under-earn. It is difficult, even in the best of circumstances, to establish a reputation and make a living as a writer. I put myself through the additional trial of having to do it 3 separate times under 3 different names. So, classic example of active under-earning. Then there's passive under-earning, which means ignoring or blinding yourself to an opportunity, failing to request a raise, not knowing what your expenses are, not attempting something unless you're positive it will work, failing to fulfill responsibilities, not increasing your fees, not asking for a raise when you deserve one, not making sales calls, just waiting for something to happen that will make things better, not capitalizing on your skills or abilities, failing to wonder if there's anything you could do to make more money, not drawing up a business or personal career plan, feeling that everything results from fate, there's nothing you can do to change it, and failing to truly test that belief. Then the author here, Jerry Mundis, gives this example. As a consultant, I break writer's block for people. In a 4-hour consultation for a long time, I did this strictly by referral, strictly by word of mouth. Eventually, people kept suggesting I advertise, and I kept pushing it off. It took me to a year I was able to advertise. And when he did, he got quite a response, quite a large response, grew his business by 4 times. So here's some characteristics of under owners. As you'll have enablers. Might be your parents, a sibling, a friend. Might be Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Sears, Macy's. Might be the Authors Guild, Con Edison, the Carnegie Fund. Might have an auto mechanic who enables your under earning. Dentist, landlord, parents, attorney, literary agents, friends. Okay, under owners very good at finding enablers to their under earning. So here are some other characteristics of under owners. Under owners are usually in debt. Under owners usually have little savings, few assets. Under owners tend to bounce from financial crisis to financial crisis. Under owners are constantly feeling pain, stress, and fear over money. Under owners tend to do a lot of unpaid work, volunteer, charity, or showcase work. Under owners often come from troubled families. Under owners often resent people who have money. Under owners are good at finding enablers to their under earning. Under owners only have a vague idea of what their expenses are. For example, how much money did you spend last month? How much money do you need to pay your bills every month? Under owners tend to rotate between workaholic to working in excess to collapse to not working at all. Exhaustion, exertion, exertion, exhaustion, back and forth. Under owners see the gross, not the net. Under owners likely to think there is spiritual or political virtue in not having money. Under owners are excessively proud of their ability to make do with little. Under owners believe their occupation won't allow them to make more money. Like, oh, I'm just a Bible-based counselor, never going to make money doing this. Or I'm just an Alexander Technique teacher. I'm just a YouTuber, never going to make any serious money doing this. Under owners often have clothes and other belongings that are old, worn out, and insufficient. Under owners believe that something will eventually come along to make things better. Eventually you'll get a raise, make a big sale, sell a book, TV show, receive a gift from a great-grandmother, pick up annual bonus, make a killing in the market, sell your stamp collection, receive an inheritance, graduate, go to work, sell the movie rights, win an insurance case, bring in an oil well, but the big fix rarely arrives. Under owners fill their free time with endless little tasks and chores. You have little time for play. You always have more to do than time in which to do it. You often feel like you're falling behind or guilty you don't accomplish enough. House is never really clean. The bills haven't been cleared. There's filing to do, phone calls to return, dry cleaning to drop off. Your closet needs organizing. You haven't spent enough time with the kids. Car should be brought in for an oil change. The floor ought to be washed. Okay, so feel lethargic or listless. You just kind of putter around half-heartedly. Might sleep for long hours, watch a lot of TV, but don't really have spare time. Under owners fear spending money and feel resentful when they must. And then alternatively, they'll just go on spending binges. Under owners believe that money will cure all their problems. So some classic cases of under owning there. And often under owners come from alcoholic or otherwise troubled homes. So let's listen to therapist Mark Smith from Family Tree Counseling.
Eating, or you experienced chronic illness or profound religious attitudes, or were adopted or lived in foster care or other potentially dysfunctional systems, you may find that you identify a great deal with the characteristics described here. It appears that much of what is true for children of alcoholics is also true for others, and that this understanding can help reduce the isolation of countless persons who also thought they were different because of their life experience. So, Jack.
Yeah, I love the YouTube channel Family Tree Counseling. All right, so some steps to overcome under-owning. Don't shoot, I surrender. It's absolutely necessary to accept that you are an under-owner if you are indeed one. It's a hard thing for most people to accept. They'd rather say I'm a sex addict or an alcoholic than to say I'm an under-owner or I'm a debtor. But without this acceptance that at core, that there's something wrong, you'll only be applying Band-Aids. I remember when I was in therapy and often tell my therapist, I wish there was just like some slight rejiggering I could do so that my life would then work. If I just fine tune a few things. I wish I could just make some not too painful changes and then my life would finally take off. And my therapist would encourage me to make fundamental change, which I never really got to do until I entered 12-step programs. If you have doubts about the reason you lack sufficient money in your life, if you feel angry, panicky, or in despair over money, set these doubts aside best you can and alone in a quiet, private place as best you can, or on YouTube, surrender. Admit to yourself you have a problem with under-owning or with debting. It's caused a lot of pain and trouble in your life. Many people experience a sense of relief. They finally admit this to themselves. So most people, when they enter 12-step program, their life immediately improves because they stop doing everything their way and they become willing to take suggestions from the program, from the big book, from the tools of the program, from people they meet in the program. If you're an addict and you become willing to take some suggestions in life and you use reasonable good judgment in who you take suggestions from, your life will almost always improve. So your life will almost always improve if you're genuinely an addict when you enter a 12-step program. So to surrender means to give up something in favor of something else. It means letting go of old ways of doing things to embrace a new way. So when I entered 12-step programs, I learned to give up having to do absolutely everything my way and learn to take directions and instruction. And then I was able to apply that. So I do volunteer work a few hours a week. In that capacity, I just take directions. Occasionally I'll make suggestions, but overwhelmingly, I would just take directions. And at work, I've learned to just take directions instead of always thinking that I'm smarter than the boss. Or I'll listen to my clients and actually try to provide what they need rather than what I want to give them. So learning to take directions is one way that my life has vastly improved. And I learned to do it from going to 12-step programs. When you admit you have a problem with under-owning, when you surrender to that, you become willing to let go of your old perceptions and behaviors, which resulted in deprivation, pressure, and unhappiness, in their place to embrace new ones, to bring about freedom, ease, and thriving. So the surrender, paradoxically, is your first triumph. And if you cannot truly surrender, I remember first year or so of 12-step work, I didn't really surrender, but I knew I was getting something out of the meetings. I just kind of went along with step 1, step 2, step 3. It's like, yeah, okay, fine. I'll try this out. And then went to step 4, found a step 4 worksheet online and started that work. And I found it immediately transformative to do step 4, complete and thorough moral inventory. Started to get clarity on my resentments and started to be able to let them go. My life immediately improved. I was so enthusiastic. It's like, yeah, this stuff really works. And I went out and I worked every 4th step worksheet that I could find online because there are a lot of different approaches to the 4th step. So I just kind of went along with the first 3 steps, didn't really surrender. Then I encountered the 4th step, experienced a fundamental transformation in my orientation towards life. Then eventually got a sponsor. I was able to go back to the 1st step, really work it thoroughly by doing things like writing a history of my debting, history of my under-owning, a history of my sex and love addiction, and get a sense of how much my life had been hampered, held back. Like when I really got a sense of how I'd been running around in circles, my self-defeating behavior, destroyed my reputation with other people, left other people feeling burned and let down. Seeing how I'd pushed moral boundaries and broken moral boundaries, then I really surrendered to step one. It's like, wow, my way of doing things just does not work. Yeah. So BB says, I bought the book because of Luke's reading. I've always avoided debt. I have to earn more. My salary is a joke. I work hard for no commission or bonus. You might just be an under earner. I want to look into programs like Debtors Anonymous, Under Earners Anonymous, or Financial Under Earners Anonymous, or just work some of the exercises from this superb book. Denial is the refusal to admit that you have a problem. So I didn't enter 12-step work from the bottom. I wasn't living in a dumpster blowing random dudes for Vegemix, okay? I had a nice apartment. I had a nice car. Had a fairly nice life. I wasn't never been arrested. I wasn't at the bottom. I just thought, oh, maybe this can improve my life. So that's how I entered 12 steps. Like, oh, I'm willing to try anything that might improve my life. Then as I stayed in the programs for longer, I began to see the full depth and breadth of my problem. And then after a year or two, became willing to surrender. Now every day, getting down on my knees, say, God, help me to treat myself with love and compassion, because I've just like abused myself my whole life. Just really spoken to myself internally in a very harsh way. Help me to treat myself with love and compassion. Help me to treat other people with love and compassion. And God, help me to accept that I am a sex addict, love addict, codependent, a debtor, an under earner. Then step 2, God, I know that you are the solution for my problems. And step 3, I'm going to make a conscious decision to turn my will and my life over to you. Then as I've gotten a handle on my basic character defects, I also add in the 7-step prayer. God, please remove from me all my defects of character that get in the way of my being of service to you and to my fellows. Grant me energy as I go forth from here to do your will. And I may hang out on my knees for a minute or two, and that's how I begin my day. And then if I encounter turbulence during my day, then I may work steps 1, 2, and 3. Again, it's like, okay, God, I recognize my helplessness before these sort of problems. I recognize that you are the solution, and I'm making a conscious decision to turn my will and my life over to you. Denial is a refusal to admit you have a problem. It's an attempt to rationalize or justify your under-earning. Denial is a wholly natural reaction. It's also a dangerous one. If you buy it, you're not going to have much success in ever bringing in enough money to meet your needs in a humane way. So, BB, what is the most amount of money you've ever earned in a year, in a calendar year? Denial is usually universal at first. Nobody wants to admit that they're an under-earner or a debtor or an alcoholic or a drug addict. Tell yourself it's your parents' fault, it's the government's fault, it's your wife's fault, it's the economy's fault, it's the patriarchy's fault, the bank's fault, your boss's fault. It's the divorce, it's taxes, it's interest rates, but your under-earning isn't your fault. You don't have to beat yourself up for being an under-earner. You don't have to beat yourself up for being a sex addict or a love addict, because I was just trying to meet my needs the best way I knew how, all right? I didn't have to beat myself up for being a debtor, an under-earner, and a sex addict. I was doing the best I could to meet my needs with the tools I had at the time. All right. Nobody chooses to be an under-earner. Okay. You didn't plan this. You didn't deliberately set out to put yourself in this position. And how old are you, BB? Mentioned you never earned over 30,000 pounds in a year. Okay. But There's no blame in this. It was not intentional, but still denial is a serious problem. So resistance to the idea of being an under-earner, especially a chronic or compulsive under-earner, is quite reasonable. It would seem at first glance that I am a compulsive under-earner, that I am condemned to continue under-earning compulsively for the rest of my life. But that is no more true than it is to admit that one is an alcoholic condemns one to go on drinking for the rest of one's life. Just the opposite. By admitting you're an alcoholic, taking the first step to get free from alcohol. So if you're in your late 30s, you've never under-earned, you've never earned over 30,000 pounds in a year, you're probably an under-earner, bro. There are 12-step programs for that. As long as you're in denial that you're an under-earner, you're going to stay in these self-defeating patterns of thinking. So to combat denial, freely admit that it's there. Admit that you're denying you're an under-earner. Tell yourself, of course, you'd rather not be an under-earner, but recognize that personal preference doesn't change the facts. Remember, you're not unique. Millions of other people are under-earners. Drive home to yourself that surrender doesn't sentence you to a life of poverty and difficulty. Just the opposite. Accepting that you're an under-earner is your first step on the road to freedom. And then just proceed as if you don't have any denial. Don't let it sidetrack you from your purpose. Denial can't force you to do anything. You can go right ahead with this program despite the presence of denial. In time, with repeated constructive action, denial will lessen. We can rewire our brains within about 3 months and form more effective neural pathways to get us on the path to prosperity. So sometimes denial will lie dormant for a while, only to pop up again later. So that's why it's good to have the steps in a community and work steps 1, 2, and 3 every morning. Okay, here are some things not to do if you're an under-earner. Do not incur debt. All right? The debt's a form of poverty, gives you the illusion of having more money than you do. The very act of borrowing, of not paying bills on time, is a clear signal that you're gaining less income than you need. So you need to receive this signal very clearly. So don't debt. As long as you consider debt a valid option for meeting your needs, then it will be nearly impossible to become free of under-earning. So accept that you're committing today not to debt, one day at a time. And then you'll find ways to succeed by either cutting your expenses, bringing in more money. That's the beginning of liberation from under-earning. Do not take work that pays you less than you need. So figure out how much do you need to pay your bills every month, and then double it. That's the amount of money you need annually so that you can save, so you can have fun, so that you can give money to charity. So for me to pay my bills every month, I need probably $3,500 a month. So that amounts to, what's that? That amounts to about $42,000 a year. Absolute bare minimum to pay my bills. Absolute minimum. All right. So if I am going to live in prosperity, that means I need to make $85,000 a year. That means when I set up on a task, I need to earn no less than $42.50 for any new earning opportunities. So if I take work brings in less than $42 an hour, I am under earning. So $42 an hour is my minimum amount of money to earn per hour for work. And I view this as a hobby. So I don't do this for the money, do this for the fun. I enjoy communicating with people about this. For work, I need to make any new work, I need to make a minimum of $42 an hour. So see how that works? You figure out what's the very minimum you need to pay your bills, then double it. So if you need $30,000 a year minimum to pay your bills, double it, makes $60,000. Then halve it will give you the amount of money you need to make per hour, $30 an hour for a 40-hour work week. Normie Al, why did you lose your spanner privileges? Because we're on a new channel. So I didn't remember to bring everyone over, but as I go along here, I'll add moderators. Okay. So do not take work that pays you less than you need. Not saying quit your job. If it's currently paying you less, go out and get a new job. Don't take any new work. For me, no less than $42 an hour. Okay, the easiest way to become clear about your expenses is to write them down. Keep track of them on a daily basis for at least 2 months. Need a spending record. Need awareness. Reflexively, routinely, under-earners take work that won't pay them enough to meet their basic needs or pay just that and only a little bit more. To prevent this lethal reflex, it's necessary to make awareness of your tendency to under-earn. Make it an integral part of your consciousness so that it figures into every decision you make about whether to accept a job, a project, or assignment. Okay? So figure out what you need to pay your bills, double it. That's how much money you need to make minimum per hour. Do not say no to money. Under-earners evade, avoid, and deflect money like running backs hurtling toward the goal line of poverty. Do not say no to money. Do not evade it. Do not avoid it. Do not deflect it. Let it into your life. Okay, most of us short-circuit several potentially profitable notions every day. An idea pops into our mind. We grow excited for a minute. Then we're overwhelmed by our negative self-talk. Oh, that would never work for me. I'm not entrepreneurial. That's not me. I'd look like a fool. It's hopeless. I'm not qualified. No one can make money that way. One way we chronically evade money is by not following up on opportunities, by putting our idea deflection shield on. So this guy, he got a call from a large professional association who wanted to hire him for a writing project, but they said, our writers aren't blocked. The problem was burnout and staleness caused by having to write on the same topics over and over. Could she help? They were willing to pay $1,200 for 4 hours. And he was about to say no because his whole 4-hour program was about breaking writer's block. Then I was struck by the realization I had a compulsion to under-earn, and I was about to turn down $1,200. Perhaps I thought the reason I'm about to turn this money down is not valid. Perhaps it is a function of my compulsion to under-earn. It was difficult, though my throat began to close and I had trouble getting the words out. I forced myself to say, yes, I think I can help you with it. I'd like to give it some thought. Is there a time tomorrow that we could speak? 6 hours later, he led a 4-hour workshop, and he called it Word Renewal. It was designed to rekindle creative vigor and enthusiasm among staff writers, eliminate staleness and burnout, and provide them the concepts and techniques they needed to never fall victim to this kind of problem again. It was a great success. So do not say no to money. Okay, reconceiving. So much of our under-earning is resulted from distorted attitudes and perceptions about yourself, about money, about earning. You need to think differently. So you need new concepts. So one concept is right now you're perfectly all right, but in all probability you have a roof over your head, you have food in the cupboard, you have clothes to wear. So right now, everything is perfectly all right. Then, would you be willing to stand up in front of a room full of strangers and tell them exactly how much you made last year and how much money you owe? I asked that at the beginning of workshops I lead. How many people here would be willing to do that right now? Hardly anyone raises a hand. Most people get uncomfortable. So money is a highly charged subject, but you can go to 12-step programs dealing with money, and you can start to become comfortable with talking about how much money you earn, how much money you owe, how much money you made that week, how much money you want to charge a prospective client. In a 12-step program related to money, you can get into a space where you can feel free to talk about topics that you would feel uncomfortable discussing in regular life. Okay, Mark Smith here from Family Tree Counseling.
And at Wojcic's, lets me in the club I wanted to be in the club too. My parents were not alcoholics. My dad was a gambler, and he was an addictive bridge player. And he had addictions such as watching movies, watching TV, reading the paper, and eating. Those were all things that occupied him and really kept him from being present or with his family, even when he was with his family. And then my mother was a food addict and a spender and a rager. And
now we all have these museum states. I learned this in one of my 12-step programs, like emotional states where we're really familiar and comfortable. And if you're watching this show, pretty much guarantee you that you have the museum state of struggleaholic, that you feel most comfortable often when you're struggling, that life is struggle. And that's just how things are. And if you're ever going to succeed at anything, you're going to have to struggle. Okay, that was my mindset. That's one of my museum states. It's a state that I relapse into very easily. Oh, everything's going to be a struggle. It's just a struggle. Earning money is a struggle. Okay, you a struggleaholic, press 1 in the chat if you are a struggleaholic. Then press 2 if you are a less thaner. Right? Do you chronically feel less than other people? So I see my peers or people younger than me. They're earning 3 times as much money as me. They're married. They have kids. They have a mortgage. They're respected in the community. And I stack my life next to them. And it's very easy for me to feel less than other people, which is an absolutely unbearable feeling. So I've traditionally reacted to it by trying to think of ways that I'm superior to other people. Just so I try to escape from reality, try to escape from feeling less than by getting into my narcissism, trying to think of ways that I'm superior to others, getting into like histrionic personality disorder. Like, I'm going to save Western civilization with my YouTube channel. I'm going to save the white race. I'm going to act as the bridge for Jews and white people to talk to each other. So press 2 if you have an emotional state of feeling less than other people. Press 3 if you're a crumbaholic. Oh, yeah, it's just a crumb, but really that's all I deserve. I only deserve crumbs. I only deserve this crappy relationship. At least she lets me throw an F into her every week, and at least she's a woman biologically. All I deserve is the crumbs. So it's a crap job. Doesn't pay well, but I'm just used to only getting crumbs in life. So this is all I deserve. Press 4 in the chat if you're an edge meister. Got to live on the edge. Got to be dangerous. It'd be so exciting to see if I have enough money to pay the rent this month, if I have enough money to pay for my health insurance this month. It's so exciting to drive around on bored tires. Okay, press 4. You're an edge meister. You're addicted to living on the edge. Press 5 if you're a worrier. But you just chronically spend time worrying. Press 6 if you're a misery maven. Oh, you're really good at misery. You're so familiar with misery. You're really good at feeling miserable. Press 7 if you're a victim. It's really easy for you to slip into the emotional state of, I'm a victim. My parents victimized me. Society's victimized me. The Jews have victimized me. My girlfriend victimizes me. My sister victimizes me. My boss victimizes me. You often slip into the mindset that you're a victim. Press 7. Press 8 if you're a rageaholic. If just getting all angry and ragey is super familiar to you, it's comfortable to you, it's a reflex response when you don't get your own way. Then 9 if you're a prosecutor. Oh, my boss is such a bad man. I saw him cheating a client there. My boss is just terrible. Or my girlfriend is such a bad person. She's so lazy, she's so irresponsible. Or I'm just no good. I'm just rotten to the core. And then another museum state is judge. You just go around judging yourself, judging other people. Judge. You're constantly judging whether you're more than or less than other people. When you're around people, you're constantly thinking of, oh, how am I superior to everyone I'm around? That's familiar habit of mine for me. So my primary museum states is struggleaholic, less thaner, and crumaholic. But I have some of the others that I mentioned as well. So I've been addicted to struggling my whole life. Marathon running suited my personality as a 12-year-old because all it was pure struggle. It didn't need any talent. I read a lot of books as a child because, again, it's just a task that simply took dedication and sometimes struggle. I remember telling my boss at K-High K-Hill Radio, Pete Dufour, I told him I was working 60 hours a week. He said to me, but are they quality hours? Immediately recognized they were not. I was just showing up, putting in the hours at a $4 an hour construction job. So I was just paid just above minimum wage, 1986, 87. I was just struggling because I was just familiar with grinding stuff out. I was a grinder. I was a struggleaholic. I'd have bosses who pointed out I just had a one-track mind. I'd just get one task in my head and I'd just grind and grind and grind away, ignore everything else. Whilst I felt less than or more than other people all my life, and it's absolutely exhausting because I'm just going up and down, constantly trying to figure out if I'm better than or worse than people I'm around, and frequently having this nagging feeling that I'm really less than my peers. It's so exhausting to keep running tabs on whether I'm more than or less than others and in which ways. In my 20s, I tried to be more than my father, and I just ran myself into the ground and ended up bedridden for 6 years. Crumaholic. All my jobs through age 18 were pretty much minimum wage. I simply accepted that, didn't try to get more. I've never asked for a raise in my whole life. So when more abundant opportunities have presented themselves, frequently I've just felt less than, felt unworthy. So been stuck in a poverty mindset.
That's how I was impacted. But as we go through these 20 characteristics, you'll see that whether it's an alcoholic family or not, some of the characteristics also apply to other dysfunctions. My mother was diabetic, so there was this constant chaos and, police or ambulances coming and, like you might get in an alcoholic family. So what I did was Janet Wojcicki had 13 characteristics of alcoholics, and I added 7 to make 20 because
So through working these programs, working this book, I was able to bump my earning up around 6 figures. So significantly improved my life, and a big debt of gratitude to Gerald Mundus. But I remember I learned about daydreaming. Oh, maladaptive daydreaming. Remember, I was so excited to learn about that concept a few years ago. I think I wrote my brother and said, I found a new mental illness that I've got. I'm a maladaptive daydreamer. They're introspective-aholic. Yep, absolutely. So let me look at some of my other museum states. Living on the edge. So when I was 11, I pushed myself to exhaustion to finish 5 marathons. When I was 12, and my knees broke down, had to quit running. I'd get into these states in high school where I'd try to go from early in the morning till late at night, just go, taking on more than I could handle. In college, I tried to do too much and just collapsed for 6 years. I wrote on the porn industry because it was edgy. I'm attracted to extreme politics because I'm attracted to the edge. For about 4 years during college, I tell everyone I was an atheistic communist because it was edgy. And I tell people I was alt-right because it was edgy. So the museum states of warrior, misery maven, victim, rageaholic have been infrequent states, but they have popped up when my life wasn't quite working, when I didn't have a clear path to follow, when I was confronting problems beyond my ability to surmount. When I am failing at life, these states come to the fore. So I did a list of 100 of my resentments, and let me pull up my resentment list. So first of all, I'd list off people or institutions that I was resentful against. Then I'd list the name. Then I'd list what they did to me, like beat me. Then I'd list which of my instincts did this impact. So there are basically three basic instincts: security instinct, meaning financial, physical, emotional, sex and romance instinct, and social instinct. So I went back to my resentment list, and most of them had security. That was the one that provoked more resentments than anything else. Then my next often was social instinct, like people that humiliated me publicly. I resented them. And then I would get clear on which of my character defects did I react out of. Was I selfish, self-centered, inconsiderate, dishonest, or fearful? Then I made a list. Okay, these are the 5 basic character defects from a 12-step perspective. So dishonesty, like all my character defects, I'd list them, and like first I'd write about how they served me. Why did I indulge in these character defects? And usually it's because they'd get me laid or paid. Okay, dishonesty can get you laid and paid. It'd help me avoid punishment. It would help me kind of navigate life, help me deal with difficult people, help me do things more easily, help me avoid work I didn't want to do, help me avoid confrontation, help me to save other people's feelings, help me to manipulate others. Then I'd write about, okay, how has this character defect hurt me? Well, dishonesty became a habit whenever I was in trouble. It became my go-to method for meeting my needs. As a result, I felt terrible about myself. I felt guilt and shame, lost credibility with other people. I was routinely caught out, and then I'd get punished and humiliated. My parents would worry about me terribly. When your parents are filled with worry about you, it's not fun for you. I got grounded by my parents. I got punished. I couldn't play with my friends. Stuck at home reading all these stupid books on Christian theology. Became someone who had the reputation that they needed to be watched. I developed bad habits such as cheating in school. I developed the habit of taking the easy way out, which usually turned out to be the hard way. So cheating became a habit of mind and behavior. My parents had these certain sayings that they kept repeating to me. Don't take the easy way out. Don't make excuses. Take responsibility. Be sure your sins will find you out. So because of my chronic dishonesty, people were less likely to trust me. Developed the habit of avoiding hard work at school and at work. I'd always look to leave early. My sloppiness and dishonesty kind of ran together, so I was repeatedly fired from every job. My habit of dishonesty just became deeply ingrained, and it began to frighten me. Became frightened of myself, began to hate myself, wanted to escape from myself and from my failure. So this led to addiction to porn, to love addiction, to making like this dramatic religious transformation, converting to Judaism to try to overcome my character defects. So I grew these certain destructive mental, emotional, social pathways for myself. It led to loserdom, led to failure, to mediocrity, to sloppiness, to low effort. It's been very hard to escape these, deeply ingrained neural pathways. Then I write about how would the character asset of honesty help me feel better about myself, raise my confidence. It would help me stay connected to God, help me to stay in integrity with my stated values, help me align my words with my deeds, help my reputation with other people, help me connect and stay connected to other people, help me to see more clearly the consequences of my choices, so I'd be more in reality. When you're in reality, live in reality, you get humiliated less. If you're getting humiliated, you're not in reality. You most likely have an exaggerated sense of your own importance. So humility to me just means living in reality, having an accurate gauge of your own importance. Honesty can help me help me navigate life more effectively, can help me with difficult people, help me to stop running around in circles, help me to deal more effectively with my responsibilities, help me to develop my character, a more accurate sense of reality, help me to stay out of serious trouble, and reduce other people's desires to seriously hurt me if I could live in the character asset of honesty.
I just thought there was a whole lot more. I'm going to start with comments on her 7 or her 13, and then I'm going to finish with my 7. So, number 1, adult children of alcoholics guess at what normal behavior is. My best friend is a fella who didn't know what it was, but he was gay as he was growing up. And
okay, how do you improve your owning in practical terms? Have an accurate sense of yourself. Okay, if you're getting humiliated, if people are retaliating against you in life, it means you don't have an accurate sense of yourself. So get this book, Earn What You Deserve by Gerald Mundis. And if you're a chronic underearner, it's most likely a spiritual disease. You most likely are addicted to feeling less than other people, feeling like a crumaholic, that you only deserve the crumbs in life. Get into a 12-step program that deals with these issues so that you can be around other people who had these problems and overcome them. So it's not a matter of putting Band-Aids on this problem. If you're an underearner, you need to come to terms that you are an underearner, right? You need to know it at your core and then get help through a program like Debtors Anonymous, Underearners Anonymous, or say Financial Underearners Anonymous. So here are some symptoms of underearning according to Underearners Anonymous. 1, time indifference. We put off what must be done. Do not use our time to support our own vision and to further our own goals. 2, idea deflection. We compulsively reject ideas that could expand our lives or careers and increase our profitability. 3, probably have a compulsive need to prove. Though we have demonstrated competence in our jobs or business, we are driven by a need to reprove our worth and value. 4, clinging to useless possessions. We hold on to possessions that no longer serve our needs, such as threadbare clothing or broken appliances. 5, exhaustion. We habitually overwork, become exhausted, then underwork or cease work completely. So February of 1998, I was working 20 to 30 hours a week, and I was taking 21 units at college. So I was getting up at 4 a.m. every morning to study calculus, and I was getting home at about 8 p.m. at night, crawling into bed. I was exhausted, and I became very sick, and I've never regained the health that I had then. Never fully come back, only come back to about 2/3 as good as the health I had then. I was basically bedridden for 6 years as a result. I exhausted myself, and then I was useless from age 22 to 27, when most people are getting started on their lives. I was bedridden because I was overdoing it, and then I collapsed. Symptom 6 of underearning, giving away our time. We compulsively volunteer for various causes or give away our services without charge. There is no clear benefit. 7, undervaluing and underpricing. We undervalue our abilities and services and fear asking for increases in compensation for what the market will bear. 8, isolation. We choose to work alone. It might serve us much better to have coworkers, associates, or employees. 9, physical ailments. Sometimes, out of fear of being larger or exposed, we experience physical ailments. The psychiatrist I saw in year 2000 suggested that my 6-year collapse was a face-saving way for me to fail. 10, misplaced guilt or shame. We feel uneasy when asking for, being given what we need or what we are owed. 11, not following up. We do not follow up on opportunities, leads, or jobs that could be profitable. We begin many projects and tasks, but often do not complete them. Then symptom 12, stability boredom. We create unnecessary conflict with coworkers, supervisors, and clients, generating problems that result in financial distress. Back to Mark Smith.
He didn't have anybody to talk to, and it wasn't safe to talk. It wasn't safe to be himself. So he guessed his way through his adolescence, and it was awkward. He really didn't know how to be a teenager. He didn't know how to date. And now in his 50s, he tells me, I'm learning how to date now. So that's real common. If you grow up in a highly dysfunctional family, is there's nobody present to mentor you and to guide you. You're guessing. You are guessing. Adult children of alcoholics have difficulty following
And BB says, this is all well and good. Most likely thing that's going to occur to us working class Brits is we'll drown in a sea of Wakandans before we can make good on investments or retire. So blaming victimhood, that victimhood mentality is not the way to prosperity. You can be prosperous, bro. You can have a much better life. It's up to you to come to grips that you are a chronic under-earner and not going to overcome this problem on your own. You'll need to get mentors. You might need to have God and spirituality in your life. You might need a 12-step program. Okay. Rundle says, isn't donating your time when there's no clear benefit called charity? Well, if you're donating your time and nobody is getting any clear benefit out of it, that's ineffective charity. If you're addicted to donating your time when you should be working and earning, then it's a symptom. I just see it as a symptom. All sorts of under-earners are giving away their time in generally unproductive means. And it's a way to avoid reality, avoid coming to grips with their responsibilities. So if you're giving away your time on the one hand, but taking from your family on the other, that's no good deed. So if you're addicted to giving away your time, it's not just charity, it's also an unhealthy compulsion. I give away several hours of my time every week. I volunteer at least probably average 10 hours a week. I give away my time, but it is rationed, it is carefully doled out to be the most effective, and I'm not giving away my time so that I have an excuse to check out from reality and to avoid my responsibilities. All right, let's look at tools to overcome under-earning. One, time recording. We must be conscious of how we spend our time. We keep a written record to increase awareness and support our focus on goals, the actions required to achieve them. Yes, so write down everything you spend, write down everything you earn, write down how you allocate the first 12 hours of every day. Just do it on weekdays, 60 hours a week. First 12 hours of your day, write down how you spend it. 2, meetings. Attend 12-step meetings regularly to share our experience, strength, and hope to help ourselves and others recover. 3, sponsorship. We actively seek sponsorship with someone who has worked the 12 steps and is willing to guide us in our recovery. 4, possession consciousness. We routinely discard what no longer serves us to foster a belief that life is plentiful and we will be able to provide ourselves with what we need. 5, service. Giving service is vital to our recovery. It is through service to others and to the fellowship that we keep what is so generously being given to us. Goals pages. We set goals for all aspects of our lives. We write them down. We measure our progress and we reward achievement. So I carry all these things around with me. So I carry goals pages around with me. So we set goals to measure our progress and reward achievement. I keep these in my pocket, so they're pretty crumpled. Preparing to define my vision. What is my vision? Do I have a vision for my life? Yes. How will my goals emerge out of that vision? If not, how will clarity of vision help me to define my individual goals? How will I define my vision? I got these goals pages from the program Under Earners Anonymous on their website. Removing obstacles. Am I willing for life to be different? What does willingness look like? How do I express my willingness for life to be difficult? Am I willing to let go of all attachments I've had to suffering? Am I willing to let go of any and all resistance I've had to being happy and prospering? If not, what is in my way? What would it look like, feel like, and sound like if I let go of all resistance to happiness and good fortune? Am I willing to let God show me a new way of living? Am I willing to enjoy my life? What will enjoyment look like? Am I willing to be different, to be the change I wish to see? What will that change look like? I will have goals for the different areas of my life. I'll have goals for earning, for service, for spirituality, for self-care, for family and friends, recreation and play, and for learning. What do I define as the major areas of my life? How does each area relate to my under-earning? I will write down my goals and I will be specific. I will separate each goal. I will develop small action steps necessary to move toward and achieve my goals. And I allow myself to go one step at a time. And I allow myself to take action in small time frames. Am I willing to accept help in achieving this goal from God, from other people? Am I willing to allow a spiritual solution to transform my life around each goal? If not, what is in my way? What other support will I need to follow through to completion of my goals? What people do I know that can and will support my reaching my goals? Who do I know that will sabotage me in reaching my goals? Who may be draining and who should I perhaps avoid? How will committing to take and then taking the action bless my life? How will avoiding or not taking the action harm me? What has been the payoff I have been getting for not taking or completing the actions? Is it the need to be right, to be a victim, to complain? Is it addiction to familiarity with suffering? Is it fear of change, loss of identity, who I will be without this debilitating condition? Do I want to stay in the drama of old communication and habit patterns that do not serve me? I want to live in the problem instead of living in the solution. Am I willing to show up and do my part and to let go and let God? Am I willing to let go of the need to know how it will happen? Am I willing to let go of the need to know the outcome? How do I let go? So I took a bunch of courses on how to make money online. I spent far more on the courses than the money I made. But then about a year later, a massive opportunity opened up to me that would never have happened if I hadn't taken those courses. An opportunity I could never have foreseen. Am I willing to take a leap of faith and trust that I am in the care of God, that God is with me every step of the way? Am I willing to ask my higher power to remove my blocks and for the willingness and strength to take and complete the necessary actions? If not, what is in my way? How do I ask for help and guidance? Am I willing to put one foot in front of the other and take the next indicated step? How will I do this? Am I willing to bookend the action with someone else? That means talk to someone before I do an action I know I need to do and then check in with them afterward. What are the steps necessary to complete this action? What is a realistic time frame for completion of this action? What date will the action be complete? What kinds of things would I enjoy as a reward for reaching a goal? How will I reward myself each time I reach a goal or complete a major action? Back to Mark Smith.
When you grow up with a lot of chaos, then you tend to replicate that chaos in your own life. And you may have all the intentions in the world of completing a project, but this thing's going on over here, and this thing's going on over here, and you're putting out a lot of fires, and it's hard to stay.
So I sold my car 4 months ago, and ever since then I've been bombarded with tickets because I didn't do it right. I didn't follow all the necessary procedures. So this guy's going out, getting tickets all over the place, and they're coming to me. And eventually I filed the correct form with the California Department of Motor Vehicles. And every time I get a ticket, I write in and provide the necessary documentation. So I have not had to pay any of the tickets, but been a massive pain in the neck, all because I was sloppy, careless, didn't follow the right procedures, but what you should do when you're selling a car. So my own lack of conscientiousness bit me in the butt once again.
Really focus to achieve your goals. Number 3, adult children of alcoholics lie when it would be just as easy to tell the truth. This speaks to safety. When you grow up with an alcoholic and a raging alcoholic or just an inconsistent alcoholic, it's not a safe environment. I read a book once, and the gist of it is why kids lie. And what it came down to is when kids feel safe, they're going to tell the truth every time. But if they don't feel safe, they're going to lie every time.
Yep. So didn't feel safe growing up, so I developed the habit of lying all the time. But when I feel safe, then it's much easier for me to tell the truth. So I had one boss who was always yelling at me, so I was constantly lying to him to try to reduce the yelling. And I had another boss who never yelled at me, so I felt comfortable telling him the truth. Okay, the character defect of fear. How is being in the character defect of excessive fear, fear beyond what is healthy? How has that helped me? Well, it's helped me avoid difficult people, difficult situations, helped me to stay safe, helped me to stick to what I do best, helped me to avoid doing bad things because I was afraid of the consequences. How has it hurt me? My excessive fear has kept me in a straitjacket. My fear led me to lying, to lack of consideration for other people, to self-seeking and selfishness. I often felt like my survival was at stake, and when my survival was at stake, I could then do anything to survive. So I developed an ethical flexibility that was difficult to drop. My fears, excessive fears, hurt my ability to sleep, hurt my ability to live and to have decent health. My fears caused me to grind my teeth. My fears kept me in a narrow range for how I'd live, how I'd eat. My fears kind of circumcised and circumscribed my life. I stayed small. My fears kept me from effectively connecting with other people. My fears kept me from trying new things. My fears kept me from growing, from reaching out to others. My fears kept me in a childlike dependent state. My fears kept me seeking face-saving ways to fail. My fears ingrained in me a negative way of talking to myself and to others. My fears ingrained bad habits that limited my life, my potential for generating prosperity. So the opposite of living in fear is living in love, generosity, and faith. The being in these characteristics helped me to deal more effectively with other people and other situations, helped me to see reality more clearly, helped me to be more prosperous, helped me to have a larger life, helped me to be of more service to others, helped me to learn new skills, to meet new people, to enjoy more of life, helped me to feel good about myself, helped me to connect to God, to transmit to the world a positive vibe, helped me to transcend the prison of my own self-defeating habits, helped me to transcend my needless limitations, helped me to expand my life, helped me to be happy and of service to God and to other people. Then there's the character defect of selfishness. So how did it serve me? It helped me to look out for my own interests, helped me to avoid getting over-involved in other people, helped me to differentiate myself and to pursue what I wanted, pursue my interests, not allow others to influence me ways I did not want, helped me to survive, helped me to take care of myself, and helped me to contribute to the world by pursuing things I am good at. How did the character defect of selfishness hurt me? Just one way I dealt with my fears. I would hoard, I wouldn't share, I was not popular with others. I lost the potential for human connection, for wholeness, and for happiness. Caused my family and loved ones worry, which then negatively affected my life. How many people like somebody who is selfish? Selfishness became a habit and a pattern, a default go-to method for navigating life. So people shunned me. They would get revenge on me because I was selfish. I was a poor employee and a poor friend. Didn't get along well with other people, with clients, with supervisors and bosses. I limited my potential for moving ahead in life, enjoying life, and being prosperous. So back to Mark Smith.
Their chins, and Mama says, "Who ate the cookies?" And well, Mama, it wasn't me, because they don't feel safe with Mama. Mama's got a rage problem. Adult children of alcoholics judge themselves without mercy. I just finished my book on shame, healing toxic shame through recovery. And it's at the editor, and I'm collecting photos to go in the digital downloadable version.
Okay, back to overcoming my character defects. So instead of being in selfishness, I could be in generosity. Instead of judging myself without mercy and other people without mercy, I could be generous and compassionate to myself and to others. I could thereby get out of my own way. I could stop running in circles. I could see reality more clearly. So I just wasn't in that selfish mode. My therapist said that she has this image of me. It's like a 1-year-old sucking on his mother's teat and just sucking it dry because he has no faith that there'll be anything else coming along. She'd noticed that I kind of sucked people dry. So being generous could help me to see new perspectives on life, help me to develop better relationships with others, overcome my crippling tendencies to narcissism and being histrionic, Help me to live in integrity, feel better about myself, develop and maintain a connection to God. Okay, then there's a character defect of self-seeking, more attention for me, just pushing myself forward, trying to gain recognition for my work and insights. So it helped me to pursue what I wanted, helped me to get laid and paid, bro. Laid and paid. Helped to make me famous. And I didn't allow other people to strangle me with their problems. I was self-seeking. How did it hurt me? I developed a attention-seeking reputation, developed a reputation for emotional instability, for draining the life out of other people, for sucking them dry. Other people resented me and retaliated against me. I knew I had this sickness, and so I loathed myself. When I was in self-loathing, I was not of much service to other people, nor to myself, nor was I particularly generous and empathic towards others. So the alternative is to be God-seeking, faith-seeking, love-seeking, generous. It's helped me to live more effectively in reality, to not constantly sabotage myself as I helplessly pursue my self-defeating desires into total destruction. Help me develop a better reputation, to be a better employee, be of more service to others, to feel better about myself, connect to God, live in community. I've long had the character defect of inconsideration. I've tended to put my own needs first. This helped me to survive. Got clear about who I was, what I wanted, and I went for it. I got laid and paid. Got a lot done. Didn't hobble myself with over consideration for what others think. Got laid and paid, bro. Got the status and the prestige and the fame, and I elbowed my way to the head of the line. Yeah. Back to Mark Smith from Family Tree Counseling.
Things that I get to do as a therapist is I get to sit with people and tell them, no, the voice that you're using on yourself is way, way, way too mean. You're not, a so-and-so, this is why you're doing it. All
right, how did the character defect of inconsideration hurt me? I developed the reputation of being inconsiderate. It did not help me connect with others and sustain relationships. Got a reputation of being a bad guy that sane, healthy people wanted to stay away from. This limited my potential. Prosperity always comes through other people. I was not able to begin to build and to sustain relationships and careers and to live happily in community. I developed lack of consideration as a habit, as a go-to mental pattern, as a default, and it has been hard to leave behind and to form more helpful and prosperous neural pathways. Well, instead of calling them neural pathways, let's call them crack hoe alleyways. Turn my lack of prosperity put me in survival mode. That accelerated my tendency to be inconsiderate and unethical and dishonest. So I spent much of my life, I'm just in survival mode, which led me to being inconsiderate, dishonest, self-seeking, selfish, and fearful. So what if I got into character asset of consideration? So then I'd be better situated in reality. I'd have a clearer sense of reality, feel better about myself. I would have a better relationship with God and with other people. And I'd have more opportunities to lead a more expanded life, help me perhaps find a wife, help me to get along with other people. So now my assignment is to apply this work to my resentment. So I have a resentment, someone stole something from me, and I resent that person for stealing. So this touched on my character defect of inconsideration. And what would be better if instead I went with the character asset of consideration? I kept the necessary paperwork. I kept multiple copies of the necessary paperwork. That would have been considerate to the other party and to me. So I'm going to go through my most powerful resentments, write a blurb on character defects it touched on, and how being in that character defect of selfishness, self-seeking, inconsideration, fear, and dishonesty, how that hurt me, that interaction, and how being in the character assets in such a situation would help me. So that's my assignment for this week. So in my opinion, you really only need to list your 10 or 20 most powerful resentments, get clear about them. Who hurt you? How did they hurt you? What aspect of your basic instincts did this affect? Your security instinct, sex instinct, or social instinct? Then what did you contribute to the problem? And those, get clear about those 10, 20 resentments. My sponsor pushed me to do 100, so I really had to push. My opinion, you only need 10 or 20. Back to Mark Smith from Family Tree Counseling on 20 characteristics of adult children of alcoholics.
With yourself. Number 5, children of alcoholics have difficulty having fun. You grow up, life's serious. There's not enough money to get bread and milk. You're having a paper route so that you can have enough to eat. And that's the foundation of your life. I have some clients who are very wealthy and retired, and they live a whole different way of living than what I do, or what most people do. Most of us have to work really hard, but if you're bad.
And BB says, I'm no longer able to kiss up to my bosses. Bro, you really don't want to kiss up to anyone. If you give someone a compliment, make sure it comes from a genuine place. If you're kissing up to people, you will hate yourself and other people will despise you. So try to be in integrity. Give a compliment, only give a compliment that's coming from a genuine place. And remember, you put yourself in this situation where you have these bosses. So you have to accept that you're a chronic under-earner and that your own habits of thinking are not going to get you out of this problem. The type of thinking that got you into this problem is not going to get you out of this problem. You need other people. You need to take suggestions from other people. Make sure you take only the good suggestions. Doesn't mean you have to do everything other people tell you. As soon as you become willing to take direction from other people, from God, from a relevant 12-step program, then your life will immediately improve. Yep, resentment is the #1 form of spiritual disease. Can you develop instead the attitude, this is a sick person. How can I be of use to them? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done. So I share with you my favorite 12-step prayers. As the 3rd step prayer, God, I offer myself to thee to be with me and to do with me as you will. Leave me in the bondage of self that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help. Your power, your love, and your way of life, may I do your will always. And there's the 7th step prayer. My Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. Pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Then here's one of my favorite prayers. Set aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, about this book, about my disease, about these steps, and especially about you, dear God, so that I may have an open mind, a new experience with myself, with the big book, with my disease, with these steps, and most of all, with you, God. Please help me to see the truth. So another way of doing the set-aside prayer is to periodically just simply let go of everything you think you know. I'm doing that now, and you see as I did that, my face just cleared up, like all the tension that was in my face disappeared, tension that was in my back or shoulders disappeared. I was able to breathe more clearly. I feel lighter and more free. So right now, I'm just continually letting go of everything that I think I know. Then I'm happy. When you let go of everything you think you know, you let go of all your fears and your resentments along with everything that you think you know. Then Another way of doing that is the set-aside prayer. Dear God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, about the big book, about my disease, 12 steps, and especially about you, dear God, so I might have an open mind and a new experience with myself, with the big book, with my disease, with these 12 steps, and especially with you, dear God. Please help me to see the truth. And there's the 11th step prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. The Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, is in pardoning that we are pardoned, is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life. Remember, I used to complain to my therapist many years ago that I'd sit in shul and I'd think, does anyone here care about me? My therapist said to me, do you care about anyone there? So I was going around seeking to be loved rather than seeking to love. I was seeking to be understood rather than to understand. I was seeking to take rather than to give. I was seeking to be pardoned rather than to pardon others. Where there was love, I was trying to sow hatred. Where there was forgiveness, I was trying to create injury. Where there was faith, I was trying to sow doubt. Where there was hope, I was trying to bring despair. Where there was light, I was trying to bring darkness. And there was joy, I was trying to bring sadness. Surprisingly, that did not make for a happy, prosperous life. So God, give me the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, the courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Or to boil it down, as we say in 12-step, God, grant me the courage to change the things I can. Wait, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So those are some of my favorite 12-step prayers. And let me go back to therapist Mark Smith from Family Tree Counseling.
Balanced, you can play hard and you can work hard. And we, adult children of alcoholics or dysfunctional families, we tend to be a serious bunch, or, and I'll get to in a little bit, people that aren't so serious at all. They're underly serious. Number 6, adult children of alcoholics take themselves very seriously. And that's one that goes along with the not having fun is you didn't get to be a kid. The job of a kid is to play so that when we get to be old, we still know how to play. We know how to go to concerts, and we know how to make friends, and we know how to go on vacation. But when you're busy taking care of your parents when you're 10, in my case, I was basically the parent of a baby.
So BB says, everyone is fearful all the time. It is essential for survival. I beg to differ. I would say I'm in fear less than 5% of the time these days. You want to be afraid if you're walking in a bad part of town, but you shouldn't chronically be in fear. That's excessive fear. That's fear way beyond what serves you. Instead, you want to be in a state of seeking to be of service to others. You want to be connected to God and to your highest self. You want to be in a state of love and compassion and generosity and responsibility. And you only want to be in fear when it's accurate to be in fear. If you're in fear more than 5% of the time, that's not normal. That's not healthy in all likelihood. Okay, so let me go back to my own history of under-earning. So I had this job in Australia. I was making $25 to $30 an hour. Came back to California in June of 1985, and I started out with an unpaid internship, Cahill Radio. And after a month, I got hired I pulled an all-nighter covering a story. Got hired at minimum wage, $3.35 an hour for 16 hours a week, for anchoring the news on the weekend. I was doing work that I loved, but it didn't pay very much. I bought my first car that summer, a 1968 Volkswagen Bug, and I totaled it in September of 1985 through my own carelessness. I was driving along a curving road, trying to change the radio station, and I ran into a parked school bus. And I didn't want to spend the $900 to repair my car, so I had to rely on rides from my mother for a very depressing few months. But I finally decided to spend the money to repair my car. Never felt the same affection for my car after that crash. Then I got mononucleosis from January to May of 1986. Completely miserable months. My parents were gone most of that time. They were in Australia. So alone, so sick. I pushed through with all my obligations. I kept my job at the radio station. I made it through 15 units at college where I only got a B average. Then in June, after school was out, I went looking for work and got a job. It only paid $4 an hour in landscaping, which is about 1/7 of what I made in Australia. And then on the third day of this miserable job where I was digging ditches, I went to the home of Doug Hanslick and his family. And upon meeting Doug Hanslick, this real estate titan in Rockland, California, said, "Oh, you're from Australia." He picked up about my accent. So like just that humanity, just that acknowledging me just meant so much in this miserable job that I just absolutely fell in love with this man and his family, and said, "Oh, my daughter, my youngest daughter, she wants to visit Australia. You must talk to her." And so the daughter came out, I had a nice chat with her, and I felt a part of the family. I felt in love with this family. It was this little bit of recognition, that small touch of human kindness completely changed the way I felt about my job. So in an ordinary job context where the boss gave me a task and I did it, I just kind of dreaded that work. But when I was just able to get a little bit of recognition from people that I liked and respected, that gave my work so much meaning and pleasure. In fact, it gave my landscaping work so much meaning and pleasure that I crazily quit most of my classes at college that fall. I only took 2 classes instead of my previously scheduled 5, so that I could work more and get more of that recognition and kindness. I gave up my position as the editor of my community college newspaper so I could work more in landscaping. Working in landscaping in the Sacramento winter was miserable. And then I had this familiar feeling that all my peers were excelling me. They were moving ahead with their education. They were working in jobs that paid $10, $20, $30 an hour. I was working for $4 an hour. They had girlfriends. They were getting regular sex. I felt so left behind. I felt out of it. I felt isolated and sad. Just had this sense there's something wrong with me. But if I just made better decisions, I could get out of this mess. Remember, I was working for a while at Chico State. I was just covered with filth as I was digging away. And I just so wanted like some human recognition from the students. But I felt pretty sure I was smarter than most of them. But I didn't get any human recognition. I remember I ran out of gas and I was walking along the road and these students pulled over. And then as I walked up to the car to get a ride, they just took off and laughed at me. So I was very much an under-earner. Good news was when I returned to Sierra Community College in the spring of 1987, I was serious now. I returned to school full-time, 15 units. I got straight A's. I additionally worked 30 hours a week in landscaping and in radio, so I finally felt like my life was on track. I got accepted into UC Davis and other colleges. Finally decided to attend UCLA. I got accepted there and felt like I was finally on track. Then February of 1988, disaster struck in the form of chronic fatigue syndrome, which basically kept me bedridden for 6 years. After making 2/3 of a recovery, I moved to Los Angeles in March of 1994. It's very social, going out almost every night to every Jewish event I could find. I was checking out as many synagogues as possible. I was dating widely. It was an exciting time, but lots of emotional and spiritual highs and stunning lows. I was living out of my car for 6 months. And until I met an Israeli guy at synagogue who offered me a place to stay in exchange for helping him with a script. So I wasn't interested in taking a regular job at this time or in going back to UCLA. So I was trying to become an actor or a model. Went to about 20 auditions. I think I got 1 or 2 callbacks. I was working as an extra, as a background player. I burned through all my savings, started living off my credit cards. Devoted myself to writing my first book, A History of X. Maxed out my credit cards at the limits of $20,000. Finally had to find a new place to live. Got a room with a Holocaust survivor. He had 24 cats. So in exchange for cleaning up after the cats, I only had to pay $200 a month rent. Started working as a temp secretary, earning about $12 an average. There are some days when I was too sick to go to work, and there was only one time I was late with my rent because of this, like 5 days late with the rent. Only time in my life this has happened. I got fired from 3 temp jobs for inappropriate speech. Wow, so embarrassing. I remember going into one job and I was going to work next to this woman, and she crawled under the table to plug in my dictation machine. And I said something I said, I'm not going to take advantage of this situation. And the boss overheard me and fired me on the spot. I only been on the job like 20 minutes and already got fired. Another time I was caught. I was working on my book on the porn industry while working as a secretary, like at hospitals and various polite places. So I got fired for that. I was like handing around copies of the porn movie I directed. Got in trouble for that. I mean, incredible self-sabotaging behavior. So I wasn't really into working, so I'd just work on my book while I was at work. I'd get in trouble. Often my temp employers liked me, so they didn't fire me, but they were disappointed. And a friend gave me this wise counsel: work only one job at a time, but I wasn't able to live up to that advice. So beginning in March of 1998, I began earning $3,000 a month from writing LukeFord.com. And my financial situation stabilized, so paid off all my credit card debt in like May of 2000. Even was able to afford a visit to Israel and Greece. But even though in some senses I was successful in writing on the porn industry, I was on 60 Minutes, Entertainment Tonight, ABC News, etc., I never made more than $45,000 in a year. And I felt dirty making money from the porn industry, so I never tried to monetize what I was doing. So from 1997 to 2007, made most of my money from writing. 2009, I went back to school, studied for 3 years, become a teacher of the Alexander technique, and found the first 18 months so exhausting I couldn't work much. I limited myself to working from home, did search engine optimization for people, maxed out my credit card debt at about $52,000, and borrowed money from people to pay for my Alexander technique tuition. Then in 2012, I wasn't able to get enough work teaching Alexander technique, of course. So I began taking office work, and but my life didn't really turn around until I got into 12-step programs related to debting, to under-earning. Well, I picked up this book in 2015, Earn What You Deserve, How to Stop Under-Earning, Start Thriving. Started getting on a phone meeting every day, gave me energy, do what I needed to do. I got all these recorded talks in these 12-step programs that I'd listen to whenever I needed energy and inspiration. Instead of listening to the radio when I drove, I just listened to these 12-step talks. I'd write out a history of my under-earning so I got clarity. And I worked the steps guide worksheet on some of my 12-step programs. So without God, I realize I am powerless of my desire for sex, money, power, fame, attention, excitement. Powerless of my under-earning, my sex addiction, love addiction, and debting. Powerless over my ability to take the steps necessary to lead an honorable life. Powerless over my tendencies to isolate myself and to have contempt for myself and others. powerless over my perversity and my desire to prove that I am smarter than other people, powerless over my tendency to daydream, to imagine myself with fantastic powers such as President of the United States, Prime Minister of Israel, or Prime Minister of Australia, editor of the New York Times or the Los Angeles Times. That's how I spend much of my time, this maladaptive daydreaming that I had all this power. And the victim, or I'm powerless over my mental obsessions, so powerful that I can't break them with my own will. If I follow my own will, I will destroy myself and possibly other people. How have I come close to destroying myself? By following my own will, or by pursuing fame through blogging about the porn industry, through challenging rabbis unnecessarily and in the wrong ways, from trying to take over a class to try to make myself bigger than everyone else, by pursuing the excitement of seduction. It led me into dangerous scenarios, the pursuing of attention, sex, romantic intrigue, significance, my desire to be bigger than I am, stepped on other people's feet and they retaliated, took stupid physical risks with my safety by having sex with nutty ladies. Remember swinging out over this gorge from a bridge, just driving crazy fast, taking risks with my health by overworking, over-exercising, overstudying. Try to overcome this by converting to Orthodox Judaism to fix myself, and then I proceeded to alienate myself from most everyone in my Orthodox community. So when I think about giving up control to God, I'm frightened. It's a leap of faith that is humbling. Think of myself as being so very disciplined and just better than everyone else. Think about giving up control. Think about giving up my familiar crutches and excuses. Might have to face that I have real conflicts with others, and that in these conflicts I have been significantly at fault. Admitting I am powerless might send me in a scary, unfamiliar direction where I lack mastery, where I have to learn to be humble, learn from other people, turn my life over to God. It's more from Mark Smith, Family Tree Counseling.
When I was 10, life gets pretty serious. And one of the challenges for our recovery process is to learn how to lighten up a little bit and have some fun. Number 7, adult children of alcoholics have difficulty with intimate relationships. I want to say, duh. And this is one I'll expound on. When you're wounded as a child, those who've watched my videos know this, we tuck that away behind psychological defenses, and then it sits dormant.
Okay, I'll open up the phone line. So while I do so, I need to chat about something that I don't need to think about. So, okay, where is it? Okay, so I was born in Kurri Kurri, Australia, May 28, 1966. And my father was a preacher man. And here, let me call in now. I'll set up the phone lines. We're going to take some calls. Okay, here we go. I'm going to set up the calls about 30 seconds. We'll take some calls. Okay, we got the phone line activated, so people can call in now, 310, and we've got a caller. Excellent. So let's go to... Okay, caller, you're on the air.
Hello. Hi, how's it going?
Good, man.
Good. I just got a quick question for you. Why is it the communists constantly push this atheist thing? It's they feel like they want to get away with religion, and their new religion is atheism and like a godless society. Why is that?
Wow. Well, the founders of communism were atheists, and they were rejecting the traditional ways of approaching life. I guess they saw religion and belief in God as an opiate of the opiate of the people that would blind people to what was really going on, would distract people from the class struggle. So I think they started with atheism and then they proceeded to develop their other theories. But atheism was the foundation, so that they would try to create a heaven on earth by abolishing the class struggle rather than abiding by traditional ways of doing things, and traditional ways have usually included God and religion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I noticed it's a huge explosion, like atheism against young men. Like that's like a lot of the free thinkers. Like they noticed a lot of atheists, like with the Peter Hitchens movement. What's his name? Dawkins. And I was just seeing a show on YouTube. It's got like 6,000 views, and it's called The Atheist Experience, and it's all about atheism and rejecting God and stuff. It's like just a huge. Why do you think it blew up so much? I think it's like kind of like promoting sin. It's a fun, easier way to live, living a sinful life, or I don't know. That's kind of the way I see it.
Okay, I got two quick thoughts that immediately come to mind. One is the rise of Islamic terrorism. I think that soured a lot of people on religion. And then the other thing that comes to mind is that God has been removed from the public square. We're no longer allowed to have prayer in school. Christianity has been largely removed from the public square in the Western world, so people don't encounter religion as much as they used to. They used to take it for granted. And so, for example, if the public square is free of God and free of religion, then people are going to be less inclined to think about God. They're going to be more inclined towards atheism. So those are two quick reasons that come to mind. And then the third reason is more and more people are going to college. And it seems that the more years of secular education people have, that acts as a secular brainwash. And so just as going to a religious school gives you a religious brainwash, going to secular school gives you a secular brainwash. So people who have a lot of secular brainwashing are much more likely to view the world in atheistic terms.
Yeah, that makes sense. I got another question for you. Kind of the Antifa stuff. People, I noticed a lot of people on the right like, oh, we need to go back and fight this Antifa stuff. But Antifa is not our enemy. Antifa is mainly just a bunch of college kids who don't know any better. It's kind of the people that are supporting them, the George Soroses, the kind of the NGO groups, stuff like that. Someone else made this point. The Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, the bankers, people like that. Those are our enemy. These college kids. It's low-hanging fruit. What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I completely agree with that. I mean, we need to hold the police accountable. They should not allow masked people going around in public. That is usually illegal in the United States. So we should try to hold law enforcement accountable, that they do not allow this Antifa violence, that they crack down on it. We should be encouraging our Justice Department to crack down on it. But what's far more important is who's funding this violence rather than the stupid college kids who are engaged in it. So that's good stuff. I'm going to take another caller. So thank you so much. Let me go to the next call in 1 second. Okay. Here we go. Yes. How's it going, man?
Good. How are you? This is Jeff calling from Montreal.
Hey, Jeff.
And I just really wanted to thank you for everything you're doing over there. It's remarkable. This is the best show in the world.
Wow. Thank you.
I'm a wayward Jew myself, and particularly enjoying your kind of more personal entries that you've been doing over the last number of years, and finding a lot of solace in it. So you do a great job making us not feel crazy, even though you're going crazy. That's kind of all I wanted to share with you, Luke. And
thanks, man.
Keep up the great work.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Good to hear from you. Take care, man. Bye-bye. Okay, so we got open lines. Anyone else wants to call in? It's 310-997-4596. 310-557-4596. Open lines, taking calls. And let's let's light up those phone lines, people, or I'm just going to be forced to read from you. Okay. I'm just going to read. Maybe I'll just read to you until we get some more calls. 310-997-4596. Okay, I'll just read you some more of my step work. My life is unmanageable. This was written many years ago. My life is unmanageable because I am a chronic under-earner. Wrote this in 2015. Never married, never had kids, never earned over $50,000 in a year. Till now, I've never had to assume adult responsibility, taken charity from others. I've sucked other people dry of money, attention, affection. I have $29K in credit card debt. I owe other people $40K. I've been more of a taker from my family than a contributor. So I must have written this in 2016. When I am hungry and tired, my willpower dries up, my productivity declines, my ability to help others declines. My willpower steadily declines as the day goes along. So I need to tackle first things first, most difficult tasks first thing in the day. Under-earning and debting has made my life small, lonely, shameful, made me a leech, a taker, a manipulator, a beggar, and an addict. Yes, I am an under-earner. I was making more money at age 18 than I make today. Okay, I wrote this in 2015, 2016. The progressive nature of the debting and under-earning disease means isolation, reduced to hanging out with fellow losers, sense of watching life pass you by, not taking advantages of the opportunities before me. Then worked on step 2. I have believed in God all of my life, with the exception of my atheist phase from ages 18 to 22. And here I am at age 50, making the decision once again to turn my life over to God. Any of my previous attempts to turn my life over to God were inadequate, if not outright frauds. Religion did not cure me. I needed a genuine connection with God, a life-changing spiritual experience. I needed the experience of God rather than theories about God. That's why I love 12-step, because it's, to me, a much more vital experience of God rather than just a series of theological dogmas about God. My will was helpless in the face of my addiction. I have zero problem intellectually in believing in God. It is turning my will and my life over to God. That is a daily challenge for me. That is why I love 12-step literature and recordings and meetings, to make that commitment stick. No longer have any illusions about my self-sufficiency. My life runs on my own will. My life run on my own will leads to destruction. Thought I could use my brain to float above everyone else, and I have to keep fronting that I am a loser. Love to point out religious people who abuse their religious authority. I have a special burn against that. Love to feel superior to others. Defiance characterizes my personality. So that's some of my step work from a few years ago. And I'll wait 30 seconds to see if anyone else wants to call in. 310-997-4596. Open lines. I spent $300 on call-in studio. So think, how much does it cost me? It cost me what? About 10 cents a minute, 20 cents a minute, 25 cents a minute. Have these open lines. I'll read a little bit. You've got more than you think. That you don't have everything you want or even that you truly need doesn't mean you have nothing. When you've come to focus obsessively on your lack of money, your debts, your pain, and the other consequences of under-earning, it's as if a filter has been placed over your eyes, and all the things you have, all that is good in your life fades out, and then you disappear. You no longer see anything but deprivation. You no longer see anything but the problems your under-earning has caused, and they become exaggerated and monstrous. Okay, I'm going to terminate the call-in. Okay. So that's the end of the call-in. This happened to me in the last year of my debting. It progressed steadily until my life seemed composed almost entirely of deprivation, lack, and pressure. I remember telling my therapist that there's just no pleasure in my life. Looking at porn was the only pleasure in my life. I think this is something like, 2010, 2011. Said my day begins with a cold shower. It doesn't get any better. I remember vividly an afternoon I was out walking with a friend. She stopped short and said, "You know what you just did?" I said, "No, what?" I said, "Look at the way the sun is coloring the clouds. Isn't that beautiful?" And you looked up for about half a second and said, "Yeah." And you looked back down and said, "I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I've got a cap falling out, but I don't have the money to go to the dentist. Can't even make the rent next week. Every time I've seen you in the last few months, all you've talked about is bills and money." She was right. There was much about my life that was positive and good then, but I had lost sight of nearly all of it. I had, for example, largely recovered from an unexpected and painful divorce, had 2 healthy and fine sons whom I loved, who loved me. I was living in Greenwich Village, which is a pleasant place to live. I had good friends. I was in better physical condition than I had been in for years. Had a well-developed talent that I could exercise as both a craft and an art. He's a writer. It's Gerald Mundis here. I had achieved a fair amount of popular and critical success over the years, and my professional reputation was strong. I had a good relationship with an attractive and emotionally generous woman. No matter how pressured or impoverished you perceive yourself to be, realize that you have much, much more in your life that is good and pleasurable right now than you've led yourself to believe. So here is a simple but effective way to begin to reverse this perception of lack and deprivation, to show it up for the distortion it really is. Sit down with a pad of paper across the top, write things in my life for which I am grateful, or things in my life I appreciate and enjoy. Now list everything you can think of. So I had a therapist who asked me to write about things that are good about me. I read a list and she said, "Why didn't you put down good looking? You're a good looking man." My therapist was a hot chick. So that felt good. Yeah, so came up with like 30 or 40 things about me that are good. And that really did buck me up. So list everything about you that is good. List everything you can be grateful for. You can say, "Oh, I'm too worried or depressed over the lack of money in my life to make such a list." You'll have to wait until you feel better, put the cart before the horse. It's making the list that will help to improve your emotions, to clear your vision, and as a consequence, to begin to improve the quality of your entire life. Some of the things a gratitude list might include are: I'm healthy, my kids are good, my stereo works, I love my dog, play a great game of tennis, my spouse loves me, I love my library, I love my home, I'm good looking, I have friends, I have a computer, I have high ceilings in my apartment, I have a lovely camera, I love my gym, I love my oak tree, I love my firm mattress, I love my lover, I love my jewelry, I love the dishwasher, I love my camping gear, I dance well, I love my antique picture, I love my answering machine. So just making a list of things you are grateful for will definitely improve your emotional state and give you more clarity about your life. So back to Mark Smith from Family Tree Counseling.
Good. And into really, many times we get a break in our 20s where our issues are sort of lying dormant, and on into our 30s. But in our 30s, many times we wake up and we realize that cool dude that we married, or that cool chick that we married in our 20s, yeah, they're drinking. They're an alcoholic, just the way dad was or mom was. Who knew? You knew. You didn't know it up here. You knew it in your heart. You had a radar system to where you knew.
Robert writes in the chat, "Never see any Hispanics on this show, even though Luke is surrounded by them. Get some women in here. Even homely women would be a huge boost. Recently read that the median rent in Oakland is now $2,800 per month in Oakland. San Francisco, $3,500, $4,000 a month. Can't be the only one here who listens to Luke and thinks he'd be a natural TV preacher if only he were a Protestant. How to get the number of viewers you deserve." I don't earn 50K. This was many years ago. I earn much better than 50K now. If you cannot get yourself any white guests, settle for some Hispanic woman. Luke, you need to study Mein Kampf for tips on how to make it. Adolf never wrote about his financial travails. That's pretty funny. Robert, I'm going to call you in a minute as I wind up this show.
Who they were going to be. I'm serious. That's exactly true. Same thing as if they're ragers, controllers, liars, ball droppers. However you were wounded, you're going to marry it. So yeah, that causes just a little teensy tiny problem with intimate relationships. One, you don't have the tools to be really very intimate or vulnerable or non-reactive. And two, you marry the devil. You marry your worst nightmare. You marry a hidden, very cleverly hidden version of the people who hurt you the most. That's what love is. Adult children.
Okay, great show, guys. Robert, I'm calling you now, but I'm going to say bye-bye. Thanks for watching.